Oh, wait, well, episode 111 of Show Viewers. Today we'll be going over the Red Ribbon Saga of the original Dragon Ball manga, also known as the Muscle Tower arc. Yeah, so this arc starts off where we see Goku flies off after the ending of the 21st Tenkaichi Budokai, and he goes flying about to look for the 4-star ball, which ultimately ends up to him going to this one area where he runs into this odd militia group, and they end up like shooting at him, attacking him, and all that stuff, which they are also looking for the Dragon Ball. And ultimately, Goku ends up finding the 6-star ball, but he has to fight his way for it. And ultimately, at one point when he's flying around on Quinto-un, he is shot out of the sky by a man by the name of Colonel Silver. Colonel Silver shoots Quinto-un out of the sky with a bazooka, and Quinto-un apparently blows up, and nothing left of it. And then we see as Goku ends up getting on the ground, obviously infuriated by this, and beats the crap out of Colonel Silver. But Colonel Silver was able to report back to base, which we learn that he is a member of this organization known as the Red Ribbon Army. And they are a criminal organization, which is the largest in the world of Dragon Ball. And they are searching for the Dragon Balls to fulfill the desires of their leader, Commander Red. But yeah, so we see this, and then we see as Goku begins to search for the next Dragon Ball. However, in his search, he can no longer use Quinto-un, so he ends up finding a robot who is with the Red Ribbon Army. He's like, yo, can you fly a plane? And the robot's like, yeah. So he ends up getting a plane caps, throwing it out. I'm going and flying. But while he's flying, he ends up in this very cold area where he's ultimately shot out of the sky because the Red Ribbon Army actually has a base here. And his plane shot out of the sky, but ultimately he is found by a local village girl who takes him back home and takes care of him, nurtures him back to health and all of that. And they ultimately reveal that the men of their village have been imprisoned to search for one of the Dragon Balls, which is in the area, and why Goku was in the area, and how their mayor has been captured and taken to Muscle Tower, which is the tower or the outpost which shot Goku out of the sky. So we see as Goku's like, you know what, since y'all have been so kind to me, I'm going to go and save y'all's mayor and beat up the Red Ribbon Army stationed at the Muscle Tower. So he ultimately ends up pulling up and wiping out all of like the guards around this, but General White has been prepared for this. So he's waiting for Goku, and he's prepared for him. So we see Goku clears out the first floor, which is a bunch of low infantry soldiers. Then he gets to the second floor, which is kind of some menial officers, beats the crap out of all of them. Then he gets to the third floor, and this is the level, level 5, the third floor, where this is the level where Goku actually first faces some contention. So he gets up here and he faces off against Full Metal Jacket. Now, Full Metal Jacket is essentially a fully robotic fighter. And we see as he puts up quite a fight against Goku. Goku's hitting him hard, sending him back and all that. And he's like, whoa, he is not getting knocked down. And Goku even comments on this. Like, he's like, whoa, this dude is a crazy strong human. And this all ultimately leads to the point where Goku's like, you know what, I'm just going to have to use the Kamehameha on him. So Goku Kamehameha this dude right in the face. And he goes, oh crap, I did something bad. I'm really sorry. I feel so bad for little innocent Goku because, like, he's not really aware of what's going on. He feels like he just killed a human, even though it's obviously a robot. And he feels bad about it, and he's apologizing, like, not like profusely apologizing, but he's like, oh crap, I did something bad, I'm sorry, like a kid would do. And it's just so funny. But yeah, then after that, we see as Full Metal Jacket obviously is not dead, so what it ends up doing is it launches the fist, and with this, Goku ultimately ends up getting hit by the fist, since he wasn't expecting it. But ultimately, he ends up beating Full Metal Jacket. So then he heads up to the 4th floor. Now, the 4th floor is where Sergeant Major Purple resides. All of the commanders of the Red Ribbon Army, or like officers of the Red Ribbon Army, are named after colors. So, like, you have General Blue, Colonel Silver, General White, Sergeant Major Purple, Commander Red. So, all those names. But yeah, so we see he goes up there and he is faced with Sergeant Major Purple, who is a ninja. And he goes about pulling a bunch of ninja chicanery. He tries using camouflage, but he had the wrong side of his camouflage. It was American flag rather than like tree camouflage. Goku's like, yo, he's over there. And then at one point he's like, all right, look, give me a time to execute my ultimate move. But you gotta go over there and count for 30 seconds. Goku gets to count. He gets to 18. He's like, wait, what's after 18? He turns and he sees Purple like trying to hide under a rock. He's like, you can't turn yet. But then he's like, okay, I whip out my biggest ploy yet. So what he does is he ends up going, and ultimately there he ends up, he ends up hiding under a pond that's in the area, and he puts a little like reed through or like a bamboo stalk so he can breathe. And for some reason, Goku goes and walks into the house, grabs a boiling pot of water, pours it down the hole, and Purple ends up jumping out. He's like, yo, I found you. So then after this, Purple's like, you know what? I'm mad, and so he ends up like, you gotta chase me down. We're actually gonna fight. So he ends up chasing him down, and Goku and him have a brief clash of weapons where Goku's Naobu, or however you say it, ends up breaking this legendary sword of Purple, and then Purple ends up revealing how he is actually, well, no, this happens later. But Goku ultimately then ends up pulling a move where he like knocks him to the sky, then he plants this Nyobu on the ground, and then Purple lands on it with the stick going right up his rectum, and he looks like a dog or something jumping around. And then ultimately Goku takes it out for him, and then they keep fighting a little bit, and then he ends up throwing some shurikens at him and stuff like that. But Goku ends up like collecting them and throwing them back at him. But Purple ends up blocking this with mats and stuff like that. And then once they get back outside, Purple's like, okay, I can't do this anymore. So he tries to use a like a boomerang shuriken on him, but it ultimately ends up barely not doing any damage to Goku. And then he's like, oh well, crap, I gotta reveal that I'm actually a group of quintuplets. And Goku's like, oh yeah, I kind of knew something was going on there. So Goku ends up ultimately wiping the floor with all the quintuplets. So then he goes up to the, so he doesn't, oh well, he actually chases this dude onto the 6th floor where resides Mechanical Man number 8. Now this dude is an android, so he is part man, part human. And here we see as Purple's like, yo, you gotta destroy this guy. But we learned that 8 is, or Android 8, I'm just referring to him as Android 8 because that's what he's referred to in the anime, is a very pacifist guy. He just doesn't want to be bad. He doesn't want to fight because he believes bad people fight. And so he ultimately doesn't end up attacking Goku. And we see as Purple threatens to self-destruct him because of the bomb with him inside him for self-destruction. But Goku ultimately ends up whacking the detonator out of his hands and beating up Purple. And so then 8 joins with him, and he's like, yo, and he's like asking about him, and he's like, are you bad because you fight? And Goku's like, no, I'm not fighting, I'm just fighting to get him a memento for my granddad. So 8 realizes that Goku's good, and they kind of run ultimately to the top floor where General White is, and they're kind of discussing stuff like that, and we see that 8 is slowly learning about Goku and being like, yeah, he's actually a good person. So we see as they get up there, and ultimately 8, not 8, but White confronts him, and he's like, yeah, you might have got me, but then he ends up opening up a hole, like a porthole, or a trapdoor in the ground, which sends them to this, like, to the 5th floor, where resides the Jiggler. And the Jiggler is just like this big blob alien thing, and Goku has to fight it, but he can't do any damage to it because he just keeps bouncing off of his fat and all of that. So he's unable to do damage. And we see as they like try and slowly contemplate this, but at one point Goku almost gets eaten, but he's able to escape. Then 8 almost gets eaten. But then Goku thinks, oh yes, because he even tried Kamehameha on him and it didn't even work. So Goku thinks, okay, so what was outside again? And he's like, oh yeah, that unbearable cold. So what he ends up doing is he blasts a hole in the wall with his Kamehameha, then hops in 8's suit after 8 is able to escape, and then allows the cold to freeze the Jiggler. So then Goku jumps out, punches him, cracks him, and he falls apart. So then we see as they go back up to the top, Commander Red's preparing to fight him, but Goku deals with the dude pretty easily. So he's at one point he's cowering, but then he gets his hyper gun, and he's like, okay, I surrender. I'll lead y'all to where the mayor is. So he ends up going in there, letting the mayor out. But then he grabs the mayor, gets him a headlock, and puts the gun to his head. And he's like, I'll kill this man if you come after me. And the mayor's like, hey, just get this guy out of here. Do whatever you have to. If I gotta die, I gotta die. But preferably, I don't want to die. So Goku ultimately ends up trying to get him back, but he ends up getting shot. And then Android 8 is then shot as well. But the hypergun doesn't do much to him. And ultimately, Android 8 is able to beat Commander Red. Yeah, it is Android 8 who's able to beat Commander Red. Let's see. That's too far. Oh gosh, why am I going so far? Yeah, I believe it is 8. Yeah, it's ultimately 8 who knocks him out. So then 8's able to get Goku, and he takes him back to the village, and alongside the mayor, where we see as everyone's happy, talking and all of that. And they're just kind of talking it through. Goku's revealing why he's here and all this, and how his radar is broken, so he's got to go back to the west to get it repaired because it got broken during all this shenanigans and stuff. And we see as 8's talking, and he's like, yeah, I've always kind of wanted to live among a family. And so the mayor's like, well, no, me and my wife, we don't have any kids with us, so come live with us. And we see as they offer to allow Goku to live there, but Goku's like, nah, if I stay, well, actually, they offer him to live there, but they're like, nah, if you stay, then they'll come back and kill us for the Dragon Ball. So he actually offers to leave the Dragon Balls there because he doesn't need them, but they're like, nah, to take them with you because they'll come and kill us if you don't take them with you. But yeah. So after all this, Goku ends up going and flying off to go to West City. Now, that is where the Red Ribbon Saga, I don't know what's specifically labeled the Red Ribbon Saga of Dragon Ball ends. Now, it's more so the Muscle Tower arc because all of this is really the Red Ribbon Saga because you have like the General Blue stuff and you have the Commander Red stuff. All that's really Red Ribbon, but I'm just going to label it as this because that's how I saw it on the wiki. But yeah, so that's all that we really have to say about the Muscle Tower, Red Ribbon Saga, or the Muscle Tower arc of Dragon Ball. And I really enjoyed this arc because I love Android 8, and I love the little girl that ends up saving Goku. She's just really kind, very sweet, and we get to see her actually later on in the series as time has passed, which is really cool. And I do really just love Android 8. He's such a kind giant, like a gentle giant, and he's goated. He's one of my favorite. I mean, there's not that many androids in Dragon Ball, but he's one of my favorites. I would say so. Because I'm not really massive on 16 or 17. I like the fight that 17 has with Piccolo later on in Z, but like, yeah. Then neither of them are like massive to me. I honestly would say I like Android 8 more, and he just had this little appearance. But yeah, like I said, that's all I really have to say about the Red Ribbon Saga. And, yeah, it is the Red Ribbon Saga. And that's all I really have to say about that's all I really have for episode 111 of Show Reviews. Thank you very much for watching.